How do they get this future? And Glenn don't. Or Abraham. Or Sasha. You ever think about what they want? What they do? If they could? Yeah, I do.
What's up, guys? Today we're back again with another Real Talk podcast. It's been a while since we did this, but I am joined with a roundtable this time to discuss the ending of The Walking Dead, a mega double split season for season 11, 12 episodes each with 2021 and 2022 to the ultimate conclusion, and then a bunch of different spin-offs, still the movies, and whatever they're going to do with this franchise moving forward. There's just a lot to talk about, kind of a pre-post-mortem of this. I would imagine that it's one of the only real pop culture phenomenons of the 2010s, honestly. And in order to really get into this and discuss it, I have with me the one and only, guys, Big Sexy himself, MJ from MJxTV, as well as his second channel, which Matt Murdock. What is it, man?
It's Link Murdock.
Link Murdock, not Matt Murdock, not Daredevil. God dang it.
Well, yeah, I'm not as sexy as Daredevil, and I'm definitely not as sexy as the two people I'm recording with right now, but we'll leave it at that. Thank you for having me back on the channel.
No worries, man. Always good to have you on this channel or any other ones that I have on this platform. But I'm also joined by another person who joined me, I think, on my very first Real Talk podcast on this channel, Dallas over at Deadass Serious. Man, why don't you say hello to everyone who's listening right now?
What's going on, guys? I'm just happy to be a part of this sexy ass roundtable.
these guys, we're gonna have fun here. Okay, so like I said, I really think, you can talk about Game of Thrones, you can talk about pretty much anything else that came out this past decade in terms of TV, in the TV landscape, really. And there is a lot to talk about there. You got Sons of Anarchy, you got House of Cards, Orange is the New Black, other things, The Handmaid's Tale, these things that people really gravitate towards, win all of the awards and everyone talks about. But when you're talking about stuff that everybody and their grandmother watched for a time there, really all you have to look at is probably Game of Thrones, which fell completely apart in its last season and left a bad taste in everyone's mouth, and The Walking Dead, to the point where back in season 5 of the show, I think you had like pretty much around 14 to 15 million people watching every single week live. I mean, it was huge. Everyone was talking about it, water cooler conversations the nation over. And obviously it isn't really where it once was, but this thing started way back at the beginning of the decade and has continued to stay relatively strong ever since. So first thing I really want to jump in here, I know I'm up to date with everything in the entire universe, so I'm going to act as this perspective, but you two have stopped watching, and that's why I'm really interested in your perspective of this news and why I wanted to talk about it with y'all. First and foremost, I want to hear both of y'all's perspective on why you started watching, when you picked up the show originally, and kind of at the same time, when did you fall off and why? So with that, I'm going to start with Dallas, if you don't mind, MJ, and he can kind of jump into this and tell us, when did you start watching and for what reason, man?
Right on. Yeah, I had picked it up probably season 2. I had heard everyone talking about it, and then I figured after the first season was out, I could just binge it. So I picked it up, and then I was along for the ride, waiting for everyone to find out where the little girl was for like 2.5 seasons.
Not that long, but yeah, I got you.
It felt like that long, but yeah, I was in it all the way up until like Glenn and his whole outrage, and I was in it a little bit past that, and I fell off just because it felt like a little bit of the same after like week after week. They were killing off people that I really didn't care to see die. Yeah, the nurse from Nurse Jackie, when she took the arrow to the face, I think that may have been when I was out. But yeah, and then I dropped off, but I may be picking it back up after this conversation.
What about you, MJ?
I picked it up just because my sister and I are huge horror fans, and every October the AMC would do the horror marathons, and this is back before we had Netflix and all that. And The Walking Dead was something that obviously we wanted to watch because we were huge fans of zombie movies, Dawn of the Dead, Night of the Living Dead, Return of the Living Dead, etc. So that was just, that was just an easy, okay, let's just watch this, let's go, right? And I started to fall off towards, I guess, the middle of the Negan arc because after a while, there's a lot of like alpha male moments during the first, I guess, section of Negan, and I like that. I like the 80s stuff. I like the alpha males. I like two alphas just clashing in battle. I like that idea, but this is something that actually Real to Real pointed out to me that I thought was very kind of just stupid, and that was we've been getting a lot of character development for Rick built up throughout the seasons, and we finally got him to be like that Shane-esque badass that we would hope he would be, and then Negan just shows like 1 second of force, and then he's just like back to being like season 2, season 3 Rick again, and it felt kind of like it kind of put like a bad taste in my mouth. And then before then too, like there was just a lot of stuff I wasn't really vibing with. Like they were teasing Glenn's death for like ever, and every season there was always like a big, oh my god, is he dead? And then with it, so I kind of got
month-long wait.
Yeah, so it's just after a while, I kind of just fell off during that. But I have heard a lot of good things from Real to Real in the later seasons that came after the Negan versus Rick story arc. So I kind of want to get back and pick up with that. So
yeah, like first and foremost, the Glenn stuff. I think every season they hinted that he was going to die. You go back to the farm where he goes into the well, and he might get bit by that fat zombie that's stuck in the well. And then they did another fake out. I can't remember. I think it was every single season. But I know specifically it was the zombie in the well. And then there was the sickness in season 4 where he got super sick. And he was like, okay, is he going to die here? And then he was pretty much the next one on the chopping block when they got to Terminus at the beginning of season 5 when they were doing that stuff. And then in the 6th season there was the dumpster instance where he crawls under the dumpster and just survives. And like Dallas said, it's a month-long wait to get to that revelation that he didn't die. And you kind of see it coming because that based on where he dies in the comic books, if you're taking that as kind of gospel of what they're going to do with the story, at least the big beats, he has to die at Negan's hand. So yeah, and it's all of that kind of combined with the ridiculous cliffhanger at the end of season 6 where you don't know who Negan kills, the opening of season 7 where he kills too many people too gruesomely. Like it's not just Glenn, but it's also Abraham, and you're left with this situation where at the end of the day they've taken Daryl, he's useless. Carol, throughout pretty much all season 7, despite becoming literally Rambo during the first 6 seasons, goes off and does F all. He's like, I want to just go off and live by myself. And Rick has reverted to his last, like, season 2 Rick, where he doesn't know what's right and wrong, and it's just about surviving instead of being thriving. So he's willing to literally let Negan put his boot under him. And there's just a lot of dragging your feet in that season, and it weared on me, and it was so dark and depressing that I even thought about giving it up. It's like, do I really want to watch this show anymore? It's really bad, and I don't see it getting any better. And season 8 picked it up a little bit because Rick got his step back. Maggie got her step back. Everybody. It's like, okay, all-out war, everyone's going to be fighting, but it just ends up being a bunch of really alpha moments between Rick and Negan, but they come across each other without killing each other way too many times, and that really deflates the tension. And then you have a bunch of unnamed or people you don't know their names of, even though they're probably told to you multiple times, you don't bother to care. Those people show up and get killed because they're just in these random gunfights with each other, and it just it didn't click in any real way. Then along comes Angela Kang in season 9 and kind of reinvigorates the entire show that somehow not only became better quality, but stayed and got better and it got better as it went along, even after Andrew Lincoln's Rick Grimes left the series, which I think is just strange to think about. You think about all these other pop culture shows that lose its main cast over time, and it just kind of becomes a shell of its former self. But we're in a weird situation where the characters that are left and who have been there for a long time have stepped up and become predominant characters, people you don't want to see die, and how the show has really evolved into its own thing now, despite the lack of some of its most prominent characters from the beginning of the series, you know, Sans, Carol, and Daryl. So that's why I've decided to stick with it. It really does pick up in season 9 and continues that way through season 10 and hopefully throughout season 11 as well.
I already made you a promise.
But I guess that kind of gets me to my next point that I want to ask you guys, and I'm going to ask MJ here first to kind of go into this. But with this announcement, like, what does this announcement change for you two who haven't really watched it in several years, knowing that it's going to end, but not really end? We still have the Rick Grimes trilogy of movies to look forward to. We still have literally pretty much all the rest of season 6 of Fear the Walking Dead, 2 seasons of The Walking Dead World Beyond. That's a limited series. We have an anthology series spinoff greenlit, and we have what is potentially going to be a spiritual sequel in a hypothetical season 12 of a Daryl and Carol spinoff in the works as well after this show ends. So, like, it's weird news because it's like it's kind of them saying the king is dead, long live the king. That's the best way I can explain it.
Right.
MJ,
Very that.
MJ, what are your thoughts on that?
I think at the end of the day, dude, I'm a fan of the series, so it's weird news, but I'm also fine with it. And what I mean by that is, even though I haven't kept up with the series in a minute, I'm a fan of the characters. And, you know, as much as I just talk shit about Rick and, you know, this and that, I would still love to see movies. I would still love to see spinoffs. I would still love to see the series carry over in some way. And in fact, I think it's kind of rejuvenating it for me. And I think the fact that I didn't understand. Could you please repeat it? What the fuck is that? What? All right, I'm gonna turn my phone off. What the fuck?
You're talking to Siri, man.
I think they mistook Sirius for her series. Hold on, yo, what the fuck? Okay, I'm gonna turn my phone off.
Siri had some input as well.
Yeah, it's some input. Yeah. All right. Anyways, just cut this part out.
No, I'm leaving this in. I'm leaving this in. We're professionals here.
Okay. All right. But yeah, at the end of the day, I'm just a fan of the characters, and the fact that this happened, it feels like it's rejuvenating the series for me. I don't think it's a coincidence, bro, that I just said literally a few days to you that I wanted to catch up, and then now this news comes out. You know what I mean? I would love to see the Daryl Carol spinoff stuff, and we've kind of seen this happen before. There's even actually news of another series that we were talking about. You know, the Cobra Kai series having like a couple of spinoffs now that it's in Netflix's pocket and Netflix's budget, and I think the main series can only do so much. So when you have the extra movies and you have the expansion and you have spinoffs and you have sequels and prequels and this and that, it can really help add to the universe because, you know, like I said, I'm just a fan of the series, bro. So I would love to see more about that universe from different perspectives of different characters, newer cast, etc. Because it can really help people fall in love with something. When something new comes out, people can fall in love with this new series and then go back and rewatch the older stuff if they really want to. You know,
let me just, before Dallas, I want to get your perspective on this as well. But before you go forward, I just want to say, probably at the very end of this, I'm going to ask you about that Cobra Kai stuff because you and I were talking about it before we jumped on this call and started recording. I haven't heard anything about a spinoff, so very end of this, honestly. I'll keep it in because I'm interested and I feel like it's worth talking about when you're talking about the expansion of a universe that's been around for, you know, quite some time. So, but despite that, Dallas, what are your thoughts on all of this news recently? Like, how does that change your perspective as somebody who has kind of let the series slip away from you as well?
I think after having taken a break for as long as I have, and the fact that there's a definitive end to the initial like mothership series, I'm definitely down to pick it back up, at least see where that goes. And if I'm not like Walking Deaded out by that point, definitely pick up the movies. Or that's what I liked about Fear the Walking Dead, was how like MJ was saying, like it gives you a different perspective of the same universe. And I admittedly fell off of that one too, but maybe I'll pick it back up when it ends. Who knows? But I'm always down for more media. I mean, like we were talking about earlier, it's just more stuff for us to enjoy and pick apart, and decide if we want to actually have it in our canon of things that we love. And it's more to choose from. It's never a bad thing.
You step outside, you risk your life. The only thing you can choose is what you're risking it for.
On a separate note, let me ask y'all, Dallas, I'll jump this right back to you as well, but I'll share a little bit of my thoughts on it. One of the things that this year, even though it's beaten everybody down, even if it hasn't beaten you down to the point where, not to get super up to date with everything that's going on, but the lack of any kind of government stimulus check, or the moratorium on rents has kind of lapsed. We have a couple more months because of an executive order that are going to push back student loan payments if you don't have the money to pay that. And then you also got the PPP that a lot of people are now going to have to start repaying next year, because it's income, and unemployment is income, and all this other stuff. It is hit with so much. To me, as somebody who's never really given it up, and what y'all are saying to me as well, like, this is something that, even though you haven't really thought of it, you haven't really focused on watching it or been as invested as you might have used to be on this series for so long, to me it's comforting to know that there's something that you like out there that's going to persist for several more years, that no matter what, I'm going to have this specific thing to sit down and watch at nights, and it's not ending anytime soon. So I'm really comforted by that fact. And if there's anything that really has pushed me to that point, it's this whole quarantine situation that we're all kind of living in right now in 2020, where I would rather sit down and watch something that reminds me of something that I liked back when the world made sense.
Right.
Something like Walking Dead, or, as MJ was saying, Cobra Kai, or anything else like that. So outside of what I've just said, is there anything that y'all want to say on that, how this has affected you, or what you're doing in your meantime to kind of relive days where the world made sense? Dallas, if you have anything, you can pass it to MJ if you don't. I mean, I know this is kind of a heavier subject than just like, oh, Walking Dead content, oh, cool.
I mean, my channel's name is Deadass Serious. I'm always down to talk about stuff like this. But I feel like, this kind of, not even just Walking Dead applicable, it's like you were talking about, it's almost like comfort food to us. These things that we already know, and we know how it's going to end, so there's not this sense of like anxiousness to it, so that it's comforting to us in a way, because we know it's full course, and it's not a 2020 of a show,
Right. Yeah.
So I've gone back to a lot of stuff like that, like American Horror Story. We were talking about that one. That's a big one for me, where it's just as dark and depressing as it is, it's like it makes me happy to watch. Or like when I'm done, I'm like, okay, cool, my life isn't so depressing,
Yeah, of course, man. Like I told you, I want to get you on one of these real talks just to talk about American Horror Story, because
yeah,
there's
absolutely,
just a lot there.
Right.
What about you, MJ? Are you comfortable with kind of sharing any thoughts on this? Like, where have you been? Like, seriously, this is like Dallas said, this is more of a dead ass serious point of this discussion, in that, like, where have you been these last 6-7 months during this entire thing, and what does content, not so much The Walking Dead, but anything, like how is that speaking to you these days, where you find comfort?
Well, I've always been somebody who watches older stuff. Instead of trying new series, I would rewatch some of the older shows and kind of just do that. I mean, I've watched Breaking Bad like 12 times at this point. That's another AMC heavy hitter. So that's a show that I definitely go back to and watch, because it does remind me of a different time. It reminds me of back to when my sister was still in school. It reminds me of like just this or that, and obviously the world was better at that point too. I mean, well, debatable if the world was better, but at least it wasn't as bad as what's going on right now. So just stuff like that, and even like you said earlier, bringing up Cobra Kai after I did, even that reminds me of a simpler time, because Cobra Kai is the sequel to the Karate Kid trilogy, and the Karate Kid trilogy definitely brings me back to a much happier time as a kid, watching those movies with my family. So it's The Walking Dead is kind of like one of those shows where it is like that. The first couple of seasons do take me back to that time period around the same time as Breaking Bad, towards the end of Breaking Bad's run, and it kind of puts me in a better mood. And I started to watch a few of the episodes of the first season, and I'm still loving it. And just to go back to what you said earlier in this podcast was, you talked about how crazy this overall franchise has been when you look at the highest numbers they got. I'm going to give you guys a comparison here for the viewers as well. WWE Monday Night Raw, that's like a household staple. Everyone grew up watching wrestling at some point, right?
Accurate.
Even WWE's Monday Night Raw, the highest rating that it ever got was an 8.1. So the fact that The Walking Dead was pulling, and Raw's been going on since like 20 something years now, 30 years now. So can you imagine like The Walking Dead at its highest pulling what Real said earlier about 14? So it's like, it's just, the demos have been crazy for The Walking Dead, and maybe not as it used to be, but it's still a cultural phenomenon. And just to see the universe expand overall, I'm ready for it.
Yeah, man. Dallas, anything to add on that, or move on?
No. I want to give him a standing ovation on that. I agree with all his points.
I wasn't, to go off on a little bit of a tangent, I wasn't really ever into wrestling. Not that I haven't ever watched any. I've watched my fair share. But to me, like, I get why. And my friendship with MJ has really kind of put this into perspective greatly. I get why there's so many people who really gravitate towards it. I mean, just the narrative that it weaves together, and how it's just this big soap opera of a show. I get that, and I think if I kind of kick myself, it's kind of this one thing. It's the same thing as comic books, and kind of draws into The Walking Dead. Maybe a little less so, because The Walking Dead is very straightforward. But I'm talking more like DC and Marvel stuff. It's like comic books where, yes, there's this overarching story that's been going on for decades, but really, if you want to get into it, the best way to do it is to just kind of jump in and see if you like it, because you can catch up with anything or the history of it later, Wikipedia, YouTube videos, whatever. Like, do you like what's going on here, and can you pick it up and really appreciate it? So, yeah, like, I get that, and that's kind of where I'm at as well right now with both of you. I've watched a lot of shows. Just a couple years ago, I rewatched the entirety of The Walking Dead. I'm up to date. I've probably watched it 3 times over this time at this point. Really like this show. I rewatched all of Mad Men recently. I rewatched Community during all of this stuff. At the beginning of the year, because of my job was so mundane, I pretty much watched all of House of Cards, and that was nice. There is this weird point where just watching stuff that you already know is so much more cathartic and much more relaxing than watching something else. And I think a lot of that kind of going to why this news is so big, and what Dallas has been kind of echoing this whole time, is knowing now that it's going to end with a television show this big, or pretty much any television show, knowing that it's going to have an ending on its own terms, regardless of whether it continues in some way, shape, or form down the line. is comforting in today's climate, and it's something that will allow you to watch it with that knowledge and understand that you're going to get to the end that was planned. And that's one of the reasons I'm very excited about this news.
That is something special when you think about it, because that is something that not many shows have. A lot of people talk about certain shows that end abruptly because either a director leaves or an actor leaves or anything of the such that just causes the entire franchise to just kind of shut down, and they have to end it quickly, and they leave a lot of questions unanswered, so it is pretty special, that this is going to have an ending that is planned. And at the end of the day, whatever you think of The Walking Dead, whether you stopped watching like Dallas and I, or if you kept watching and you kind of about some of the few seasons here and there, and there was a lot of highs, a lot of lows, the fact that you're getting an actual ending, and then plus you're getting more later, that's pretty good for the fans, brother.
Sorry if I didn't want my best friend to spend her whole life on a boat.
Best friend? What are you, Zan?
Whatever.
And I guess on that note, I wanted to discuss with y'all a little bit about some of the other stuff that we've gotten. Now I know, and this one's a little bit crazy, granted, but it's something that I've been thinking about for a long time. Now, we've talked a little bit about how The Walking Dead was on the top of the world halfway through the last decade. Around season 5, it was pulling in, I think on average, I think the other day I looked at the average, its highest point, it was like 17.3 million people watching every single week.
Damn.
Nothing bigger besides probably Game of Thrones, but Game of Thrones is kind of an anomaly in that situation. And it never went on as long, it didn't drag out and all this other stuff, so there's a lot to discuss there. But then I've seen a lot of people talk about how this universe, this entire brand, recently has just fallen in viewership to the point where rock bottom is pulling in around 3 million or less every single week in live viewership these days with this particular season. And while that is a good argument, I think it ignores a lot of the reality of the situation. Yes, people have stopped watching it live, but the way that we track television viewership has changed drastically, and the way people watch television has changed drastically. 3 million people plus might watch this episode live on television with commercials, but that's not counting the 5-day, 7-day numbers that come out later, obviously, which really do factor, and they end up putting in the main numbers anyway. So I think season 10 has had about 4 million people on average watch. And then you're also looking at AMC pulling up their new streaming application where they're giving people early access to that new week's video 2 days early. And we don't get full-blown numbers from them at all like we don't get any from Netflix or Amazon or anything else like that. And then you also have to calculate the fact that AMC owns The Walking Dead. This isn't a Breaking Bad situation. It's not a Mad Men situation. One of the reasons this show is something they push so hard is because it's one of the only ones, or the very first one especially, that they own outright. And AMC, despite having a streaming network, isn't affiliated with any of these other brands and networks trying to vie for their own streaming content. So you still have the first 9 seasons on Netflix with Fear the Walking Dead on Hulu, and those are open deals. We don't know how much Netflix is paying for it, but what we do know is that Netflix is going to be losing some of its biggest content in the next coming years because of all of these other streaming networks that are created by all these other corporations. So who knows how valuable something like this is to Netflix and whether or not we're ever going to see those numbers. My point here is 4 million people watching every single week still is the biggest number for a scripted cable news or cable television show on the Sunday night primetime slot that it's in, bar none. And the second biggest show on AMC is Fear the Walking Dead with a pretty much 1.5 million people per week, and arguably the worst television season I've ever seen. just the worst written, the worst performed, just everything about that season, the previous season, was very bad. And it does kind of put into context that this show, like, people think that this show is dying, but look at it from like a logical perspective. This show is still doing gangbusters, and it would have to be, if you're looking at it from perspective, like, these people are paid a lot of money. There's no way that they're sitting around going, we're going to end this show, we're going to greenlight 2 shows that you have no idea if they're going to do well. We're going to do these movies, and we're going to continue this universe of content for the foreseeable future. This is AMC sitting there going, like, we're CBS or Paramount, and this is our Star Trek. This is something that's going to be 50 years down the line. Like, you don't look just at the raw numbers and go, it's a dead show. It's impossible at this point. I would be willing to argue it's probably the most profitable show, or one of the most profitable shows out there. So I don't really, like, if y'all have something to say about that, you can. I just wanted to put that into context for anyone who might just look at the numbers and be like, oh, it's dying, and how are they going to continue?
I could throw something in, but if Dallas wants to go first, he can.
Oh no, I was gonna say, talking back to one of the points from a minute ago. For one, I'm glad it's not going the way of shows like Dead Like Me or Dexter, where the showrunner had left for Dead Like Me and the series just fell off after that. Or Dexter, I felt like went longer than it should have, and then it fell off. Yeah, so I mean, I'm glad it's getting a definitive ending, and I'm glad that it's going to actually get something that viewers can say beginning to end, like, they had a plan for this. This is where it was going to go. It's not a train wreck. So I'm just glad it's getting at least that kind of a send off.
Fair.
I just hope Daryl goes into a room and the lights just go off, and that's how it ends.
He goes into the bar and
mid scene.
Oh yeah, do a Sopranos ending. No, I was thinking you're referring like a Cheers ending where, no, we're closed. You just turn off the lights of the bar, and somebody tries to come in and like, no, we're closed.
Like Shaun of the Dead, right? The zombies trying to get in.
Very little gruff old voice. No, we're closed.
But, you bring up a good point, though, with the numbers and the ratings, because you're kind of right about that. Again, jumping back to, wrestling here, you got household names. You know, you got wrestling programming on USA Network, TNT, WWE, AEW, respectively, pulling in, I think, like 1.16. You got, I think, AEW doing like 1.046. They're pulling in those numbers on average during the pandemic and whatnot, and even before then, they were just barely pulling above a 2. So, even I think the highest demo for one of the highest like rated segments that paid off in 3 years, it was like a built up storyline over the last 3 years between 2 people. Even that barely hit like a 2.1 during the pandemic. So it's like you got these household programs that have been going on for years, brother, years, and even they're barely pulling in, 2 million. So when you got The Walking Dead still pulling in 3 to 4 million on primetime television Sunday night, that tells you that's a pretty big deal. Plus, the way you look at ratings now is just different now. Now, if wrestling is doing like a 1.1 on TV average, they're also interested in a YouTube video doing 1 million views, and they're also interested in the demo there and what's the key graphic there, etc. You know what I mean? So it's not the same as it was back during Monday Night Football versus wrestling versus this versus, it's not, or The Simpsons versus this. It's not the same anymore. Now you got so many streaming services. Now you got YouTube. There's other ways to break down how successful a show is,
I don't know if you can talk to this, MJ, at all, but like I said, I don't really follow wrestling all that much, but didn't I just read something like they just renewed, like with all of that just said, like how much stuff this is bringing in, like 2 million or whatever people a night. Didn't I just see some news about USA or somebody who's signing a deal with Raw or something where it's like billions over the course of 10 years or something like that? Like, there's something that I saw very recently about that.
I'm not too sure about that. That'd probably be more of a question for Danny, since he knows more about like that stuff than I do. But there has been talks about like newer contracts and stuff like that, and I believe one of their programmings was going to move from USA to Sci-Fi. But I feel like that was shut down. I thought I heard that was a rumor, but I remember that being a big talking point because they were wondering if they were going to pull the same numbers on Sci-Fi, because they're barely pulling like a 1.6 to a 2 on USA, and USA is respectively a bigger network than Sci-Fi, I think.
Yeah, and I think that was actually something that I read very recently. Not to get way too off topic again, but I read very recently. I was covering and still very much enjoyed the run for the Purged franchise that was on USA.
Right.
And then there was also hype or speculation that they could have a similar run for the Treadstone, Born Legacy, Born Supremacy, Identity spin-off television show that was also on USA. But recently they canceled, I think even before the outbreak happened, they canceled both of those shows. And the understanding is they were going to be moving more towards live content. That to me was very interesting, just because it kind of gives you a perspective of just how successful this stuff is. Like, it's easier to produce, and it pulls in a really great chunk of the audience for today's standards.
Yeah, because right now I just looked up some of the demos. Like right now, AEW Dynamite on TNT, there's like articles just going crazy over the fact that it toppled 1 million viewers, and that's a big deal during the pandemic, right? So they're going crazy over this 1 million, and I'm just like, well, Walking Dead is, like you said earlier, consistently, at least the last couple of seasons or this last season was consistently getting 3 to 4. So again, it may not be the juggernaut that it was a few seasons back, but it's still a very popular show in that sense, if you look at it from that perspective, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
So I guess, and that's really the $1 million question right now is, can it survive without its main flagship show? I mean, are people going to care? Yeah, like Daryl and Carol are very huge fan favorite characters, and if you're going to spin off anything, not spinning off one, but spinning off both of them into a new original show that doesn't really follow the comic books, probably is a really good idea. But is it going to be able to bring in 2-3 million viewers every single week? That remains to be seen. And at the same time, they're doing an anthology series, episodic or series of episodes, maybe like 2 or 3 per story, whatever they're going to do, of stories based in the universe. So theoretically, you can do like a Negan story, or what was Maggie doing when she disappeared for all those years. I mean, not that y'all are really up to date with that, but or you could just go like, oh, what was Glenn doing before the very beginning of the apocalypse, and bring characters back. Like, what was Abraham doing when they were moving from Texas all the way to Virginia? Like, that's interesting stuff. Plus, you could also go overseas. You can go on boats. You could do all these other things like people are trying to do. The Cure, kind of. All of it, right? That, to me, is a really interesting concept. And I think it's there's a lot of stuff you can do with that particular series. At the same time, you have this pseudo season 12 with your 2 main leads from the franchise, people who've been there since episode 3 of the first season,
right,
heading something up. And I want to just float this out, talk about all of this with your response. Like, what do you think of the anthology series? What do you think of Daryl and Carol? But I know you guys haven't really been watching season 10, but there was a moment that kind of got my fan fiction-y brain sparking in season 10, and I can't believe that this was done unintentionally. If you were, there's a moment at the very first episode of season 10 where Carol and Daryl are kind of getting back together. They're like they're kind of catching up because she's been on the sea for all these months, and she's like, I just want to get out of here. I want to do something. Like, you and I can just leave, go up on our own, maybe go to New Mexico. And I'm just sitting there going, oh shit, are they going to, like, how crazy would it be for them to go to New Mexico and just
like that was the setup?
Not
yeah.
Maybe that's the setup, but like, how crazy would it be to go to New Mexico and just hint? Not you don't have to do a full blown crossover, but just hint that it's part of the Breaking Bad universe, right? Because that
that'd be dope.
So, like, with all of that being said, like, what are your thoughts on the anthology series? What are your thoughts on the Carol and Daryl spinoff, and anything else going forward? And also, throw in the Rick Grimes movies. Whatever your thoughts on any of that is for the future of the franchise. MJ, you want to start?
Yeah, as far as the movies go, I'm a fan of Rick. I'm a fan of Andrew Lincoln, so I want to see him do more stuff. So that would be interesting. Plus, I haven't really gone to that part yet in the story, so I want to get to that during my rewatch, and hopefully, maybe by then, maybe the movies will be kickstarting once I finish my rewatch. We'll see, though, 'cause I do take a while to rewatch stuff, but that should be interesting. Also, the whole anthology stuff, I would be cool with that. I'm actually a fan of anthology series. I like stuff like True Detective. I just recently finished watching the first season of American Horror Story with my girlfriend because she's a huge fan of that series.
Yeah.
So I watched the first. I literally finished the season finale of the first season last night, and
nice.
Damn, man. So
yeah. But, season 2, man, that one's even crazy.
Season two, in my personal opinion, is the best. It is so
same.
I heard it's way more like gruesome, lot more bloody and stuff like that. So
gruesome. Not to get too off topic. Gruesome, yes, but like it's
depressing.
Yeah,
it's depressing. Okay,
it's just the culmination of everything that you think the show wants to be from the first season. Like, to me, it's one of those things where after I watched it, now I've been watching The Walking Dead and American Horror Story since they first debuted. So,
right.
I was watching it live, and every single week it just got crazier and crazier, and it got really good. And where I felt like the first season kind of fell apart at the very end, the second season just keeps ratcheting up to the point where by the time you get to the end, it felt, and it's probably one of the only seasons, if I'm candid, in the American Horror Story anthology series that feels like it deserved its ending. Yeah, it completed itself.
Right.
And so by the time you get there, you're like, oh man, that was a really good season. And it kind of left the door open to be like, what are they going to do next?
Right. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of anthology series, and I would be cool to see kind of The Walking Dead's take on that and see what they can possibly do. Because like you brought up, dude, there's a lot that they can do, man. I would love to see some overseas stuff. Like I want to see what this virus or what this has done to people that are just not in this nation, like in a different spot of the world. I think that would be kind of dope too. Yeah. Plus the type of scenery you can do, the directors could go crazy with wherever spot they're at. I just think it'd be awesome to see that. And as far as Carol and Daryl goes, I think that'd be cool. My only question is, has Daryl hit it yet, or is that a spoiler?
He's stayed pretty celibate the whole time, man. Like he
right.
Yeah, he's there's been a lot of conversation recently about like what is his preference, and I was banging on the drums like I really wanted, because Norman Reedus came out and said like he was totally fine with Daryl just being homosexual, and that and there's Aaron. I don't know. Y'all got to Aaron. He's in season 5.
Yeah.
They go out together, and Morgan saves them. All this other. So like, there was talk that like him and Aaron would get together at some point, and I was like, I am totally for that, because Aaron has just become such a freaking badass dude. Like, I honestly, like, if he dies in the show, like, I would be super bummed, because he's one of my favorite characters at this point. But I don't know if that's going to happen. So.
Right.
They introduced.
I mean, I'm all for it.
Yeah, and so exactly, and like that to me was super. That was a great idea, but they've introduced a new semi-love interest for him that I won't spoil for you guys if you don't really know. But I'm really digging the it's really smartly written, because Daryl is such a loner, and he's such a physically emotional person where he doesn't say anything, but you know what he's feeling. throughout most of the series, but they've introduced someone where he can't do that, so he's like forced to open up, and it's very smartly written. Like, he's forced to talk, and that's been one of the best things about the show on the underlying theme. But yeah, like Carol and Daryl are still teased throughout most of the last couple of seasons. Their relationships picked up, and there's some really great moments between them in season 10 that are both real and imaginary, because Carol's going through some shit. She's not retreating, but she's going through some shit. So it's like,
right,
it's really up in the air. And honestly, I don't know where they're going with it. I don't know what's going to happen to them at the end of all of this. I do think I would just be happy with them being like kind of soulmates, but not like in a physical relationship. It's like these two people are meant to be together.
Right.
But it's not. It doesn't have to get physical. It doesn't have to be a will they, won't they.
Right. It's kind of like Boy Meets World, dog. Sean and Corey, soulmates, but they're not actually fucking. So, most random comparison ever. But I'll leave it at that.
I love it. I love it.
Accurate.
I love Boy Meets World, man.
I bet you anyone watching this, if y'all made it 45 minutes in, y'all probably did not think I was going to bring that up. I'm so, if you made it this far, we appreciate it.
You're talking about the
thanks for sticking around.
The late 90s, early 2000s cultural phenomenon that Boy Meets World was. I love that show so much.
I love it too, bro. But we're on Real Talk, and Boy Meets World made it on a American Horror Story Saw channel, bro. So,
Rob,
it's 2020. Anything's possible.
Right.
No, but I agree with you. That would be interesting, because I am the believer of multiple like soulmates and stuff. So if them being soulmates, but not necessarily the physical kind or the the relationship kind, but the friendship kind, I'm down with that. So
yeah.
It's one of the stronger relationships in the entire show. But Dallas, what are your thoughts on literally all of that? I mean, there's a lot.
Well, I think if their spinoff doesn't go the way of Joey, they're going to be just fine.
There you go. Friends is also fun.
Bring it back full circle, bro.
Right?
The problem with Joey, can I just say, the problem with Joey wasn't the fact that they spun off Joey. They spun off Joey, and they made Joey a completely different character in that show.
Right.
I'm not even a huge Friends fan, but even I've seen like the couple episodes in Joey, and he's like, this isn't Joey. Like they made Joey the straight man amongst a bunch of chaotic people, and it's like, it just doesn't work.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
But you were saying,
plus, if I remember, they barely even mentioned the other cast, so it's kind of weird that you just have this dude here in this spinoff, and it's almost like they cut the ties from like his past, and he's just put in this random like universe, completely different character, but with the same name.
Right.
Anyway, Dallas, what were you saying?
Yeah, let me see. Well, I got my Joey joke in, and then I was...
I'm gonna have to shut up, bro. I'm gonna mute my mic so you can talk.
No, let's see. I was thinking the anthology standpoint of that, like you were talking about, how maybe we could show, like, each episode could be like a main character from the series, like from the flagship series, showing how, it's their episode showing what they were doing when everything went down, and it ends with their first scene in the show that they were in.
Oh, that's actually a really good idea. Like,
I like that.
That's what I would pitch.
Like Glenn.
Yeah, when he finds him in the tank.
It's like, you don't even have to you just use the old footage, and you use somebody like a stand-in for Andrew Lincoln, and he's like on top of the roof. He goes into the tank. He's like, comfortable in their asshole.
Right. And then end of Glenn's episode. You know what I mean?
Ah, that's good. And then like you could also, I don't know if they could do this, but like that would be great. Like just to see what like the Dixon brothers were up to.
Right.
Oh yeah, their past life, even pre-apocalypse, that could be an episode. They're like drug dealers or whatever they knew.
That could be the twofer episode.
Yeah. So that could be. I would love to see. I would love to see Michael Rooker come back, even if it's just for one episode. That'd be dope.
Unfortunately, you can't you can't do anything with Maggie because pretty much the guy, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but the guy who played Herschel passed.
Oh, he did.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
that's
sad.
right. Fuck. Forgot about
And
that.
but that would be really interesting to go back to and just see like how they dealt with it at the beginning and why they decided to put like zombies in the
In the barn, right?
yeah
Right.
and you can go back and show what Negan was up to before all of this. I mean, that's a comic book in and of itself. They did that
That they
storyline.
did make.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's actually a fairly interesting comic book. I mean, Jeffrey Dean Morgan has said multiple times that he wants to play that role. He wants to explore that story. So it's something you can do. And strangely enough, you haven't had any greenlit spinoffs for Maggie or Negan. It kind of begs the question: what are they going to do with those characters? Are they going to kill them off, or are they going to continue to live in these communities, and Daryl and Carol are just going to go off on their own and be loners? I mean, it begs the question there. But I agree with you, man. I hadn't even thought about building those stories up to their introduction into the show, but I think that would add a lot of fanfare with those episodes.
And I would just pitch a title and have them call it The Crawling Dead, because you got to crawl before you can walk. Hey.
The Crawling Dead. That's a bar, man. Damn. Damn. All right.
So I dude, that's a good idea.
And maybe, just maybe, it'll be one of the best decisions you ever made. Like not killing a guy who left your brother on a rooftop to die.
And also, if you're gonna go big, and they're going big, I would just say for the Rick Grimes movies, I know y'all haven't been focusing on this. They're gonna be focusing on it in the new third season or show. I mean, that's coming out soon. The World Beyond. There's this 3-ring community. There's 3 communities that are bigger than the Commonwealth in the storyline. You don't really know the comics. The Commonwealth is where they're going to right now, where after the Whisperers, after Negan, all of this other stuff, they go and find like a community of 50,000 people living like, without any infection and stuff. That's where we're headed. And it's a spoiler, but it's not really, because this is like just a big arc without really going into what happens.
Right.
But that's where the show is headed in terms of its mega final season. It's the final arc. And then you have this other community, which we've seen throughout the show and been teased for multiple years. They took Rick Grimes because he didn't die. You got the trilogy coming out. He's working for them. And they have helicopters and all this stuff 10 years into the future, or multiple years into the future, that still work. They're operational, and they're looking for like the future. We know that because they're able to get to like Virginia and the Washington D.C. area, and they're able to go all the way to Texas. I mean, they have nationwide reach.
Right.
And that's something that's going to be focusing on this new show and also the movies. And a lot of people are speculating that the movies are going to encompass Rick Grimes doing something for the cure, like having to go on some mission for the cure. So kind of as MJ, you and I have talked about in the past, like I know they're doing the Last of Us television show, but I've just been of the opinion like just buy the rights to the Last of Us story and just allow that to be the movie franchise. Like just do a Children of Men, The Last of Us storyline where Rick Grimes has to transport somebody across the entire country because they are the quote unquote quote cure. That would be epic. I don't know if that's what they're going to do. Who knows? The rumor is right now, and I've talked to you, MJ, about this. I've told you multiple times. The movies I never really thought are going to happen. Not that they're not going to happen, but they're not going to happen in the way that everyone wants them to because they're taking so long. And every time Scott Gimple talks about them, he talks in such vague nature, despite having worked on this for 2 years, that it's like they have no plan and they don't really know what they're going to do. They might have an opening scene, but everything else from that is just nonsense. And it kind of makes me... It kind of goes with this rumor that's been floating around that both AMC and Andrew Lincoln have rejected like several versions of the script. Like they've rewritten it like on rumor. They've rewritten it like 4 or 5 times at this point. And
right.
They keep rejecting. It's like, this isn't good enough. Like if we're going to do this, it has to be great. And,
at least that's why.
Yeah. And so, I mean, just off of that, like, what are your thoughts? MJ, I start with you. What are your thoughts on the movie? Do you think it needs to be as big as, like, Let's Find the Cure, or can it just be another, like, take down the big bad meanies storyline?
Well, if you talk about connecting universes, what I want to do is I'm waiting for Rick to meet like the adult version of 11 and just connect those two universes from Stranger Things. Say that the virus came from the upside down from something that escaped from it or something. You know, I'd be fine with that. But no,
they go to Russia.
I mean, it makes sense. She'd be like 40, 50 by around Rick's age by the time they meet.
True.
So
that's true.
But anyways, I'm just fucking around. I think they could probably do both. Maybe they could do something where the movies lead up to the whole finding the cure thing, and then on the side he does have like some antagonists that he has to do Rick things to. You know you're fucking with. You know what I'm saying? You can just go around and just be. That was a horrible impression. But you get my point. They could probably do a couple of things like that. But I have faith. I have faith in what Angelique could do, and I have faith in what they want to take this story and like what route they want to take this, because if they're trying to make it great, if they want to make it great, that's fine. And it could lead to a huge like revelational like type of story where they throw the entire universe on its head, and that being the cure, or finding out what the cure is, or finding out where this all comes from, etc. You know, so they could do something like that. But if it comes down to just Rick knocking heads for a couple of movies, I'd be fine with that too, to be honest with you. You know, so
I think after having big bad after big bad, they do need to have some kind of like finality to everything. Otherwise, it's just going to be all right, and we all live happily ever after. Yeah. So it's either, I figure they either find a way to kill all of the remaining zombies, or they find a cure to where when someone dies, they don't automatically become one. Like I'm fine with that, absolutely. I don't know if it's got to last 3 movies, like that story. I don't know if it's got to go that whole like Hunger Games route, if they're going to split the last movie into 2 movies, you know what I mean?
It's going to be a Matrix thing where they're going to do, because there's a 6-year time skip from the point where he leaves, and then they pick up 6 years. The day after.
So it's like 6 years from when they get him in the helicopter?
Yeah, they get him in the helicopter. This is kind of a spoiler, but it's just part of the story. Like, you get to it where they pick him up, and then it's almost a 6-year time skip immediately from that.
I didn't know that. Okay, so there's a time skip in between. All right.
But wow. But Dallas, I had never really thought of that, and I think you're absolutely 100% right, is that seems like something that would pad out the trilogy. They do a Matrix trilogy where the first movie is what happened during the 6-year time skip, and then the second 2 movies catch up to modern day after the end of the TV show. Carol and Daryl go off and do their own thing. Michonne joins those 2 movies, and anybody else from the show who's still alive and who still wants to be a part of it, and everyone comes in and does everything. And it's a 2-part finale where pretty much the 3rd movie is the big finale for the television show as a whole. That's a really good point.
I can see that happening, yeah.
And agreed that I don't know if a Find the Cure movie can last 3 movies, but if it's the plot of the first movie, and then like MJ was saying, this is Rick Grimes, he doesn't take shit from anybody, and he pulls a Joel from the Last of Us and just decides it's better to cling to our humanity instead of do whatever it takes to find something, sabotages the cure, and then they just learn to live with the apocalypse. That would be an interesting end to the movie. But again, like what Dallas was saying, how do you justify the other 2 movies? That like I said, that's something that makes sense to me. That's a finality of a character, and you could do something like The Last of Us, or maybe not The Last of Us, but something like Children of Men, where Rick has to do this one final thing, and then he ultimately dies at the end of it, having made this monumental decision that's going to affect everyone going forward, because it's this really gray area of, it's better to be humane about the way that we decide our future than live at any cost, or like or find the cure at any cost, or something like that.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with that.
New Mexico.
What the hell's in New Mexico?
People who weave bracelets.
But again, I don't know what they're going to do. The trilogy always seemed very weird to me. But you know what? Before we go, the two things I want to talk about, as I promised earlier, is I want to talk about that Cobra Kai stuff, because I'm interested in that, and we've already been talking here for an hour about the closure of The Walking Dead and everything surrounding it. But I also wanted to get y'all's opinion, even if it's just like a yay or nay, as to the pseudo season 12 spinoff of Daryl and Carol going to New Mexico and having some connection to Breaking Bad. Whether you would like to see, like, just go to New Mexico and run into Stinky Pete and Badger, like that would be enough for me. Like, just run into Stinky Pete, Badger, and it's fine. Like, don't even have to be named, just the same actors, right? Like,
I want to say there's an Easter egg about the meth was in a bag that Daryl had in one episode, that super blue, super blue meth they made.
Yeah, because he's on Merle's bike, and Merle has pills and stuff that they need for Carl, and he pulls it out, and the blue meth is there. And also, one of my favorite episodes, I think it's called Still, could be wrong, it's in season 4, when everyone gets dispersed from each other after the governor destroys the prison. He goes off with Beth, and he's talking about his old drug dealer that was like a skinny, janky white kid who said bitch a lot and shit. And it's like, oh, that's like, that's obviously
yeah.
So
they made a lot of references to Breaking Bad, right? Also the blue meth stuff, and then in Fear the Walking Dead, right? Don't they play the Heisenberg song or something like that?
They play the Heisenberg song because they're in Texas, New Mexico area, and they go into like the black market, something. The most interesting thing I think they've ever explored in the entire universe, and they forgot about it completely. But it's a football stadium that they've refigured into pretty much a black market for the apocalypse. And they walk into there, and they're playing the Heisenberg song on that. And you also have Glenn driving the car that Walt bought for him, and I don't know if it was him or Walt Jr.'s car, but the episode in season 5 where he buys them 2 cars.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I mean, obviously, because these things are filmed, they're making reference to each other. They're kind of owned or contracted by the same people. That's why that happens. But like I'm saying, just Badger and Skinny Pete, they just show up in the background.
That's all.
They're not named. It's just they're there. They're connected. Like,
I know, right?
Something definitive.
Yeah, that would be great to me, and it's not like it contradicts anything that we've ever seen in any of the Breaking Bad extended universe. We haven't gotten that far into its timeline.
I don't know if I necessarily want to see like a Heisenberg or a Jesse like being like a badass or anything. I'm not too sure about that, but they've thrown so many references in that at the end of the day, if this spinoff of Carol and Daryl actually did go to New Mexico, it would be cool to kind of see like the final nail in the coffin to prove that, okay, this is the same universe, would be for them to pass the house in Albuquerque, and you see like Heisenberg written on the wall still, and you see like the pool completely destroyed because it already was destroyed during that few month time skip or that year time skip when Walter was gone. So you kind of see the house just completely destroyed and everything is still there the way it was when Heisenberg left it, like just I think that would be like the final nail in the coffin. Okay, yeah, they're in the same fucking universe. Way to go. That's dope. You know what I mean? But I don't know if I want to see like Walter or Jesse, or not Walter, but Jesse is like a zombie and Daryl kills them. I don't know if I really want to see something like that. You know,
right?
He's in Alaska, right? Like,
he's in Alaska.
He's in Alaska. Like,
That's true. That's true. You're right.
He's alive and well. Like he's alive and well. But they go to New Mexico, and like not a zombie, not that blatant or anything, but like Heisenberg is spray painted on a wall somewhere. Like that's enough. Where it's like, shit, yeah. Like these take place in the same universe, and it doesn't even contradict each other right now because, I think as far as we got in the timeline, or at least we know in the timeline, for real in the Breaking Bad universe was what? It starts in 2008. Pretty much the entire show takes place over the course of a year, and then it jumps ahead another year. So that's 2010, which would have been theoretically at the start of the zombie apocalypse for what we knew, but then Fear the Walking Dead kind of pushed that up to 2012. So
yeah,
it works, right? Like,
it's close. Yeah.
The only thing I don't like about it is the fact that all the shit that Jesse went through, and then he's like, "Yeah, man, I'm free, I'm alive," and then he gets to Alaska,
but he's in something something we've only seen once in the entire series of The Walking Dead. Is he's in a place where it's cold, so if he learns how to survive there, like he's in a pretty good situation. Because,
that is true.
During the winters, the zombie, like from what we saw in season 9, during the winters, the zombies are pretty much useless. You just have to survive the cold.
I would just love to see Daryl like in New Mexico just like cap a zombie right in the head with one of his arrows, and then you just hear from a voice in the back, "Yo, you knocked his head off, and that's on church, yo!" And there's like a skinny patch on the back. Like I would just love that, man.
That would be great. But Dallas, do you have any thoughts on that, or like anything that you would like to see from the Breaking Bad universe kind of port over to The Walking Dead, just to kind of hint to confirm more heavily that connection? I mean, it could be blue meth. I mean, that can still be floating around. They made so much of it.
No. I feel like what we've thrown out there it's been not on the nose, but a tip of the hat. It's like, yes, we're acknowledging this. If you were a fan of both, then you know. But it's not something that's like just rubbing it in the face of like every person watching. Like, look, they're connected.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
But the subtler, the better.
Oh, yes. No, I don't want to see Jesse join The Walking Dead.
Exactly.
Yeah, asshole. I clicked all the buttons. I still can't find the internet.
I've tried connecting to the Wi-Fi.
Obviously. What's Wi-Fi?
MJ, the question for the Cobra Kai thing, I'll just leave it in here because I'm very curious. I haven't heard anything about spin-offs. I don't even know what you would begin to do with spin-offs.
So don't quote me on it. I saw it.
You. Everyone who's listening this far is going to quote you.
I saw a couple of articles, but you know how articles can be fake. I can't remember if it was done by like an actual like legitimate in the legitimate platform, but they were supposedly, according to an interview with the creators of the show, the 3 creators, that they had ideas already in their head for spin-offs, and to be exact, it was 5 scenarios where they could pick up from, and they were gonna go that route. And of course, the people in the comments were like, "What happened with Terry Silver? Terry Silver and Creasy's relationship. What happened with that?" And then other stuff like Mr. Miyagi's family in Okinawa, stuff like that, and kind of picking up there because I believe there's rumors about Cobra Kai season 3 in Okinawa and stuff. So it's kind of like just those like ideas. And if they were to go that route, if the spinoff thing is true and the creators do have ideas for it, now that they got Netflix's budget and they're in Netflix's pocket and they're on this bigger platform now with these other heavy hitters like Ozark and Stranger Things and The Witcher, I would so be down for an expanded universe, because we already have the original trilogy, then we have the movie with Hilary Swank and the next Karate Kid, and then to have the Cobra Kai TV show, and then to have something pick up afterwards or before as a prequel. Who knows? I think that would be kind of dope, because you and I have talked about this to some detail, and not kind of, we were talking about how Rocky is one of the few franchises where they've done like sequels and they've taken stories from the past, you know, with the Russians and stuff and doing that, and it's been good. Not many TV shows and movies can say that they've done reboots and remakes and sequels and they've been good. Usually most of them are trash. That's why there's a negative stigma towards them. Mm-hmm. Cobra Kai is also one of those franchises where I never thought a sequel could work. Maybe they would have just left it alone. But no, after watching Cobra Kai, I think it's really good. It can be corny, but it's also really fucking good. So I like the fact that this is one of those franchises that respects the originals and has put a lot of love into it. So if they want to expand the universe, I'd be all for it.
See, I just got done watching it last night, and I think, I don't know if you commented or you saw my my tweet about it. It was like, holy crap, that final fight, holy shit.
Yeah, that I'm trying to bite my tongue, but I don't know if Dallas has seen it yet.
Oh
but.
My god.
No, I haven't.
And I'm sorry to kind of section you off from this part of the conversation.
No, you're good.
But literally that final fight, just the culmination of those first two seasons is like, oh my fucking god! Like
it's epic, dude. It has no reason being this epic, but it is.
It's so freaking good. Like, it's so good, and that's kind of how I felt this entire time. I told you back when it first came on, like, you were raving about it, and pretty much everybody that I respected on this platform was talking about it, like, oh, this is something definitely to watch. And they offered the first two episodes for free because I'm not going to pay for YouTube Premium program, and obviously nobody else did either. That's because it failed. And it's like, there's so few platforms that I really want to pay for, and Netflix is just the premium one, so it made sense. It definitely makes sense for them to pick it up and for them to go forward with it. But once it went on there, I was all for it because I watched the very first two episodes and I was like, oh my god, like, this has no right being this good.
Right. And by the way, I want to point out to Dallas and to the viewers who have not seen it yet, it's a very easy series to digest. It's only like 25 minutes an episode. It's not like the 50-minute episodes that The Witcher or Stranger Things is. So if you have time, you can knock the two seasons out pretty quick.
And it's like 20 episodes. And like that, like, to me, I think the older I get and the busier I get with life and work and all this other stuff is, dude, I want to, maybe I'll do a real talk at some point. Maybe y'all want to come back to talk about this. I don't know how. It won't certainly be an hour and 15 minutes long, but just the need for more story-driven narratives, television shows that forego the hour-long broadcast to a 30-minute. I mean,
for sure.
Cobra Kai is a fantastic example of being able to condense a story to make it easily digestible, of course, across 10 episodes, where you're like, that felt fresh, it felt great, and I don't feel exhausted watching it.
Right.
Another one, which if neither of you have watched, I highly, highly cannot recommend it enough. Barry on HBO.
I've heard of that, yeah, but I haven't seen it.
Heard of it, yeah, I haven't seen it.
Fucking good, and it's 30-minute episodes. Like, I can't wait for season 3. I honestly,
is that with Bill Hader?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
I love him as an actor.
Yeah, I love him too. I've seen Toasty on Twitter rag about it, like, he just loves it. So yeah,
it's amazing, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I still need to pick up and watch it. I watched the first 2 or 3 episodes, but I think Atlanta is also an example in that, where it's just 30-minute episodes. I think I could be wrong.
It's another one I've yet to see.
I haven't seen that. I also hear Fake Taxi is about 30 minutes an episode. So I'll shut up. I'm sorry.
This guy. Oh my god! I'm trying to keep it.
For people that are under 18 here, please don't Google that. Okay, please.
Oh my god!
It's a very well coherent stories. You get everything you need in 5 minutes.
Talk about episodic television, man. You know, that's compelling television, brother. I'll tell you that.
Oh man, oh god.
But
anyway.
Yeah, those shows are examples. I agree with you. I feel like if creators can find a way to condense stuff in the shorter periods of time, I'd be all for it. Obviously, maybe the finales can be a little bit longer just to have some more fun, but overall, yeah, it's good.
To wrap that around and to end this up, I would say that I would actually be really down with the anthology series for The Walking Dead being 30 minutes. I think that would be a really interesting way to condense probably not only the budget for the series, but also just keep people's interest. I mean, short-form content is easier to keep track of.
That's true, because you may have some people who are hesitant, like, we just finished a 12-year-long series. You want us to watch something about Glenn's prequel, but an hour-long episode. But if it's only 30 minutes, it's way easier for people to kind of go, okay, let me jump into this. I can just grab a beer or grab a soda and let me just watch this real quick.
Of course.
Right.
Of course. So, all right, I'm going to end it there because I know we can talk about this and everything else for hours and hours. Again, guys, thank you so much for coming in and talking about this with me, because this news kind of hit me pretty hard. And I've just been waiting, chomping at the bit all week with work and everything to be like, I need time to sit down and record this. And I don't want to just write up a script like I would normally do or just bullet points and go at it myself. Like, I want to have a real conversation. So thank you all so much for joining. I hope everyone who got this far enjoyed it. Again, Dallas, everything, or maybe even MJ, I told both of y'all, like, I would love to have y'all back to talk about Scream at some point.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
And maybe MJ, if you're up for it, but Dallas, you especially, to come back and talk about the American Horror Story. It'd be really interesting to get MJ's perspective if he doesn't really care about spoilers.
Right.
Oh, that's fine, bro. I'm fine with spoilers, but I'll try and at least get season 2 done before
we could even talk the first season to begin with, since you've seen it. Get your perspective
we could
since
do
you're
that.
fresh into it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we could do that, definitely. Yeah.
Can I just say,
I'm down.
Yeah, and God, I don't want to get way too off topic. People have already clicked off because it's super off topic if they got this far in the begin with. But I just want to say, holy shit! I have to say, this was the moment where I decided the show was absolutely batshit crazy, and I had to watch it because I was super on the fence during the first airing of the very first episode, right? Where I'm sitting there like, I don't really know. It's a weird show, and it's going really fast, and I don't understand what they're doing. And
it's Ryan Murphy.
Yeah, it's Ryan Murphy. It's Ryan Murphy. Like, yeah, it's Ryan Murphy. It's like but fuck that. I love Nip Tuck. I was so.
Oh my god! I'm rewatching the Carver storyline right now.
Oh my god! I don't think I've ever been more interested in a freaking twist that disappointed me more. But the Carver storyline, I was into that shit, man. Like, that was my.
Oh yeah.
I lived and breathed season 3 of Nip Tuck.
Yes.
So.
It was so good.
Good days, dude. Good day. Talk about something you need to go back and watch just for the fun of it. So the first episode, I'm like, I don't really know. It's weird. It's Ryan Murphy. It's great. But then Moira comes in.
Oh my god! Yes.
Oh my fucking god! That threw me for a goddamn loop. Where old lady, hot fucking maid. And I'm like,
yeah.
Yeah. She's very attractive, bro. She's very attractive.
It's amazing. That was like, oh shit, like this show's gonna have balls, and it just steamrolls through the entire season, and it's like, oh my god.
Oh yeah.
It
went fast.
Constance. I love the Constance character. She's really good. I like her a lot.
Dude.
Oh yeah.
Jessica Lange, just you think you love Constance? Really?
Jude.
Wait until Sister Jude.
Yes.
Oh, I heard about that. That's season 3 or 4.
That's season 2, actually.
It's season 2. Oh, yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah,
all right.
You're about to find out.
Sister Jude, and then
don't learn today.
Which one is Apocalypse? Because my girlfriend
that is 8.
She liked Apocalypse a lot. But
that's 8. You're a ways off.
You're ways
off. Okay. I won't even think about it then.
In order to watch Apocalypse, you have to watch season 3. You have to watch Coven.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Technically, I would just watch them all, and then season 6. We got to do a round table on your opinion on that one.
Season 6, Roanoke.
Yeah, Roanoke. That was so divisive as far as fans go.
I can't remember off the top of my head where I ranked all of them in my ranking video, but dude, I gotta admit, I don't necessarily like what they did to shake it up halfway through, but I give them props for shaking it up because it was getting stale. Like, it's brilliant writing where what you're doing is just getting stale but still interesting, and then they just throw that all away and doing like, we're doing something else now, and it's like, oh, cool. Like,
see, and I appreciated that because the whole like Ghost Hunter shows I fucking hate. Like, I don't care for them at all. But when it came to that, I was seriously like, the first 5, I was like, I knew a twist was coming at the 6th episode, and I was like, all right, you just got to get through it. And then I like the fact that everything that happened in the next few episodes paid off everything that the first 5 set up.
Yeah.
Right.
So I was in it because I just appreciated that it was a change to the formula. It was presented in a completely different way. Like, they didn't do found footage at all until that point, I don't think.
No, and
it was just different.
Yeah, and that was really interesting. And then, yeah, season 6 is worth talking about. Fucking Cult's worth talking about.
Yes,
like, Cult is a brutal season. Like, I think Cult is the hardest season to watch just because it's so real. Like, it's not realistic. It's just
very timely.
It's so divisive. Like, it just illustrates how divisive our culture is right now. And then 1984 was just such a fun season.
I loved it. Yeah, it was good.
Oh God, like the slasher season. Oh my God, like that. I had more fun watching that than I did Apocalypse. And
wait, 84 is a slasher season?
84 is slasher. Yeah, it's
80s slasher.
I cannot wait. Oh, I love slasher stuff.
Okay, the thing about 84 though is that one thing about it is going to bug the shit out of you, and you just need to, I guess, understand from the start is that it does not take place in the same universe that all of the other seasons do.
Okay. Well, quick question.
That dude,
freaking
Night Stalker shit. Like, fuck them.
Yes, you know exactly what I mean.
Fuck them. Fuck them. God damn it! Like, and you know,
MJ, you'll see.
Okay, I'll be ready for it.
All right,
it'll conflict with Hotel
in a major way.
A quick question. So, my girl was telling me that some seasons actually do call back to other stuff, right? Or they take.
That's what you're just saying.
It's not like an anthology series like True Detective, where each season is a completely different universe. They actually do call back to the other seasons.
It's weird. There's callbacks. So 1984 has callbacks to 2.
Okay.
They have very subtle callbacks to 2. It upends a lot of what was established in season 5, which then somehow, like, in itself kind of upends a lot that happened in season 3. And then 8, and then I guess 1.
I mean, the way they all connect, it kind of all conflicts when you sit down and think about it.
And that's concerning. That to me was way more concerning before it got renewed to season 13, and they're doing the spin-off series. So now I don't really care as much. Like, I would rather season 10 be its own thing again, because I think the freedom to do that allowed season 9 to be really good.
To just breathe. Yeah, it could do whatever it wanted, really. And I mean, I didn't really care for like the you'll know what I mean by like just the ending. It was just very not American Horror Story.
No,
but it was a change enough to where I was welcoming to see what they had in store.
Yeah, and truth be told, like, I love the series to death, but there's very few seasons of that show that end well. That's why I said at the beginning, like, season 2 ends perfectly because
it is. Yeah, they had that story like beginning to end written out before they started shooting, is how it felt.
Yeah, and a lot of it now just seems like Ryan Murphy.
It's on the fly.
Yeah, they don't, and they've said as much. Like, he said that like he doesn't care. Like he comes up with it before the end. Like, like 3 episodes left of filming when they're filming. Like they'll be writing,
and they're still getting scripts. Yeah, exactly.
And whatever.
It's irresponsible to me. Like, it's not how I would run a show.
But he does so much, and Ryan Murphy's great too. Like, if you haven't, I haven't watched the 2nd season yet, but I'm going to. If you haven't watched The Politician, that show is amazing. It was so much fun. It's definitely worth checking out. And then I haven't watched his Hollywood show.
Ratchet is supposed to start with the 18th on Netflix.
Oh, I'm so excited, and it looks pumped. So like there's even people speculating is this part of the American Horror Story universe? I don't think so, but it has that feel, and I was like, I'm so excited for that.
I'd be down if it connected to other shows of his. Even it doesn't even have to be American Horror Story.
That's true. Yeah, MJ, we could do it season by season. That would be fun. It would. I'm
down.
Yeah, because it's hard to talk about that whole series as a whole, just because it doesn't connect as much as we're trying to make it seem.
That's fine, bro. I mean, I'll keep watching, but we can do one on season 1. I'll be down for Murder House, dog. So.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's one of the better seasons, and to me, we can talk about this later, but to me, it's like it didn't really know what it wanted to be yet, and you will see as you watch the others that they do become American Horror Story. Like, by the time you're done with season 3 or 4, you'll know what American Horror Story is all about.
I'd say by 4 for sure.
And I still have such a hard time rewatching 4, man. Like,
it's
weird.
It was good, but the ending, like you could nail it or you can't, and it didn't even go for either, and just like left the room. I was let down for sure.
Yeah, it's one of the weaker ones in my opinion.
And it was Jessica Lange's send-off, which made it kind of sting. You know, it's like that's how she left, or like that's how the show let her leave. You know, on that note.
Yeah. Oh, you're absolutely right, and that's fine. She came back. She came back for at least an episode or 2.
You know, we got her back.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take it.
Anyway, guys, we're gonna just stop. We've talked about enough miscellaneous shit. But guys, yeah, I will definitely love to have you all back to talk about all of this stuff in the future. Just because MJ knows this, Dallas will tell you this. Like, I grew up in YouTube doing these roundtable discussions with friends whenever possible, and I just have so much fucking fun doing this shit. Excuse my language. I've been talking too much. My brain's dead. I would be far more articulate if this wasn't an hour and a half into a podcast. But no, seriously, I've had so much fun talking to you guys about this stuff that I've just been, like I said, chomping at the bit to get to all week, and just haven't had the time or energy to do it. And I wouldn't have done it if he didn't come and help me do it. So thank you guys. I'll talk to both of y'all later, and I'm going to hopefully people have gotten at least this far to hear it, but probably not. I hope everyone is having a fantastic day. Like I said, always, MJ's channels will be in the description section below. Link Murdoch, MJxTV, as well as Dallas's Dead Serious. Hope everyone is having a fantastic day. It's been real. Dead ass serious, I'm sorry. It's been real. It's been real.
Shout out to Chris Evans, man.